Before we talk about coding, let's actually talk about Git. I would like to talk about Git because you're going to see it on just about every job posting that exists. There are 4 objectives to this video. So before the end of this video, you should first have an understanding between the difference between Git and GitHub. Second, you should have an understanding of some alternatives to GitHub that you might come across during your job hunt. 3, we're going to talk about creating an actual GitHub account. And 4, we're actually going to download Git onto your local machine or environment. Moving forward, if I use the word environment, I am referencing your local machine. And that's something that you'll see very common just moving forward. So what is Git and what is GitHub? If you go onto their website, then you'll see that they define it as a free and open source distributed version control system. So what is all that? If we break it down, free and open source, usually whenever you hear the word open source, then you can expect for this program, this software, or whatever it is that they're trying to, this code, this project, it's going to be free. And open source also is something that many developers can contribute to. And we'll talk about contributing in later videos. But usually whenever you hear free and open source, you're talking about an environment that costs nothing to the public or the community and is available for the developer community to contribute to. Version control. It's sometimes referred to as source control, and it is really just a practice of tracking and managing changes to software code. So if we break that down just a little bit more, then really what it's trying to say is that you can have multiple versions of the same file. And you're probably asking yourself, what's the advantage of that? But let's just say you have 2 developers working on the same file. Let's just say it's the homepage. You could have both developers working on independent sections of the homepage. And before Git, if 2 people wanted to collaborate on the same file, then they had to do it at separate times because if somebody was working on a specific section, then the other person wouldn't be able to work on it without overwriting their code. Git really allows for both developers to have their own files and their own version of that file. Once both developers finish working on their assignment, then you can really start merging in work without having to worry about the developers stepping on each other's code or overwriting the other person's work. So that's really the power behind version control, but it's also not exclusive to just working with teams. If you're working on a project by yourself, Git is still very powerful. If you are building a website, for example, then you could very well have something that's your first version of the website can be just the foundation. It's just something that it could be as simple as a file that says hello world. And then your second version can be connecting to databases. The third version could be adding color. The fourth version could be changing some of the colors. And so really, as you're advancing in your project, then you will have multiple versions. And so Git allows for you to review your history, but it also allows for you to see the history of what other people are doing. And it really just makes collaborating a lot easier. So what is GitHub? GitHub is a company that hosts software development code using Git. So if we break that down, really, GitHub is just a place where you can store all your files. So really, basically, GitHub is just a company that hosts files using Git. And it's the largest of the version control system companies that exist currently. And, they were the ones that actually created Git. So now that we know that GitHub is a company that just hosts Git files, then you're probably wondering, are there other companies that are doing the same thing? And the answer to that would be yes. So some competitors and alternatives to GitHub include Azure DevOps Server, Bitbucket, and GitLab. There's some others that exist, and if you just look up GitHub alternatives or GitHub competitors, then you'll find a list of them. But these are three that you'll probably see are common in job applications. And they all have their different perks. But what we're going to be using is GitHub. So why are we going to be using GitHub? First, it's free. There are premium options, and like some of these premium options allow you to create private repositories. So if you have sensitive work that you want to keep hidden, then maybe you should buy a premium account for GitHub. But we're going to be using it because it's free to use, and everything that we're going to be sharing is going to be open source also. 2, it is the most widely used platform. So if we familiarize ourselves with GitHub, then you're going to be able to use Git on any of the others, because really all the other alternatives are very strongly based off of GitHub. So if you know how to use Git on GitHub, then you will be able to pick it up on any version control system. All right, so let's actually go and create a new GitHub account. So the first thing you're going to want to do to create a GitHub account is to go to github.com. I'll have a link in the description of the video that you can easily check out, so you can visit this website. But if you go to github.com, then you'll come across this page. And then the second thing you're going to do is just click on the sign up button. You'll put in your email. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and create a password. All right. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and create a username. This is available still. You'll see that you might run into the issue where some of these are not available. So like if you were to just say, this is mine, so it's not available, but we're going to be going to use one that is. Actually like this a little bit better. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue. Would you like to receive product updates and announcements? I'm going to go ahead and press no. We'll go ahead and start the puzzle. Pick one square, shows 2 identical objects. This one. We'll do the same thing. Okay. Then we have the option to create an account. So now I'm going to go check my email. All right. And I just got my code from my email, so I'm going to go ahead and authenticate myself. How many team members will you be working with? Go ahead and just do for you. This is just going to be for us. Let's see. This will help us. I'm going to go ahead and just skip the personalization down here. All right. And now we have our GitHub account. And so if you were to actually go to your profile, you actually have your own URL right here that you can share with others. And this is what you'll also put on job applications, and employers will definitely see any kind of contributions you have to your code. If you notice right here, so all of these are all by dates. And so if you look at right here, we have one contribution on Tuesday, June 6th. And this is really, let's see if we go to, so they're including my joined GitHub as a contribution. So yeah, so feel free to go through GitHub, personalize what you need. You can upload a photo, edit your profile, but essentially this is you have created your first GitHub profile. Now the final thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download Git. So if we go to Git download, I also have this and this link in the description. Once you click on the link and go to gitsem.com/downloads, then this will automatically have the version that you want. There are other ways that you can get older releases if you want, but for our purposes, let's go ahead and just download for Windows. And you have for your either 32-bit Git or 64-bit. For me, I do have this kind of a setup, so I would be clicking this one. And then you just download it and install it. Once you see this screen, then you'll go through the installation process. For this purpose, let's just stick with all the defaults. You can use a different text editor if you want, but for this purpose, I'm just going to go ahead and just stick with all the defaults. And really, even my personal Git setup has personalized information on here, but since we're only doing the initial setup, we're only going to do all the defaults. Okay, and then you've completed the Git setup wizard. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. One way that you can check this just to verify is if you were to open up PowerShell inside your Windows machine, then you can actually just use the command git v, and the v is the shortcut for version. If you don't want to use the shortcut, you can do 2 flags, and it'll be the same thing. So now we see that we have the version that I just installed, the 2410, which is up here. The other thing that you can also do is if you just type in git, then you'll have basically their documentation of commands that you can go through. And I'll go through more details of what all this means, but you've now installed Git onto your machine. So now you're all set. We have gone through the differences between Git and GitHub. So we've talked about some GitHub alternatives. We have now created our first GitHub account, and we've downloaded Git onto our machine. So now we're ready to get going. And in the next video, then we'll be talking about some of the basic commands and how to use Git.